Welcome to the Fleet Geeks podcast. We're here to help develop fleet and transport professionals. Do you want to progress and develop your skills and knowledge? We promise to bring lively conversation and debate around interesting issues and keep you bang up to date with changes in our awesome industry. The Fleet Geeks are a community of professionals, and if you enjoy the podcast, why not join the discussion for free in the Fleet Geek community over on Facebook?
There we go. So the red light is rolling, and welcome to another edition of Fleet Geeks, or Fleet Geek, because I'm on my own again. I don't know. I keep meaning, believe it or not, we don't catalogue Fleet Geeks, and we need to catalogue it but I'm pretty certain we're on episode. We're in the 60s now, anyway. I'm not 60, by the way, not yet. But we are in the 60s in terms of numbers of podcasts. So it's inevitable that we're going to probably come across or come across, get me words out. We're going to come across subjects that we've already covered. We might want to cover them again or in a slightly different way. So apologise if we've done this one before. But the subject, it's only going to be a quickie, this one. The subject for today's podcast is rather the exciting title of Hire and Reward. And the reason why I wanted to bring this up in a podcast is, as you know, regular listeners and viewers, my day job is generally find me teaching transport manager certificate of professional competence. So that's kind of what I do. One of the things that people struggle sometimes to get their heads around is when we talk about operator licensing, and we talk about scope of operator licensing. So what we mean by scope of operator licensing is if I'm operating a goods vehicle, when does it become in scope? When would I need to consider I must have an operator's license. And also on top of that is, even if we've decided that vehicle comes in scope of operator's licensing, can we claim an exemption? Is there an opportunity there for us to say, well, okay, the vehicle meets that criteria of being in scope of operator's licensing. However, we believe that the job we do with it, the operation that we do with that vehicle could indeed, or the vehicle itself indeed, could be exempt from operator licensing. And then we look at the type of operator licensing, or the type of operator's license. So we've got three types of operator's license in the UK. We've got the restricted license, we've got the standard national, and we've got the standard international. So once we've decided that our vehicle and our operation is in scope of operator's licensing, then we decide which operator's license must we apply for based on what we're going to be doing with that operator's license. Now, in terms of operator licensing, we're either going to need an operator's license or we're exempt if we've reached that certain threshold. So that threshold is 3,500 kilos or 3.5 tons. If our vehicle or combination, if we've got a vehicle and a trailer, if that combination is in excess of 3,500 kilos, 3.5 tons gross vehicle weight, then we are going to be in scope of operator licensing. It is at that point that we decide, one, can we claim an exemption from operator's licensing? Number two, what type of operator's license is required? So type of operator's license, as I say, restricted, standard national, standard international. If we are moving goods that are our goods, or goods that we've bought to sell on to a customer, or goods that we're processing in some way, shape or form to move on to our customer. So if we're moving goods from A to B, and there is no third party to that chain, there is no C paying us, then that is what we call moving goods on our own account. If we move somebody else's goods, on the other hand, if we're moving goods that are somebody else's, then we're moving those goods, and we're going to need. So in that sort of scenario, we've got goods moving from A to B. This time we've got C, who's paying us to move those goods from A to B. So that would fall under the banner of hire and reward. So own account, we're moving our own goods that we've bought to sell on, goods that we've manufactured to sell to our customers or to deliver to our customers, or goods that we're processing.
Hi, it's Pete from Flagship Partners. We're really proud to sponsor the Fleet Geeks podcast. Flagship Partners offer a range of consultancy and training services to ensure that our customers remain compliant and have the best possible knowledge to be able to fulfill their work. If you're interested in support with any of our safety, HR or compliance services, or you want to train to be a transport manager or need driver CPC training, give us a call today.
And sometimes this is a bit of a contentious one. People tend to erroneously think that it's to do with the title of the goods, who owns the goods. It isn't. If those goods are being carried in connection with your trade or business, it doesn't really matter who actually owns the goods at that point in time. It's more to do with the purpose of that journey, why you're delivering those goods. So why am I mentioning this in terms of hiring? Where are we getting to on this? We also have to think about drivers' hours. So for that, we have another scope. So we've dealt with operator licensing. Now we're going to look at the scope of drivers' hours. And again, we apply that same principle. If the vehicle or the combination is over 3,500 kilograms, then we can that vehicle will be in scope of driver's hours rules. Now, in particular, by default, if you like, they come within the scope of EU driver's hours rules. However, now we may look at our operation and we may decide that we can claim what is called an exemption or a derogation from the necessity to follow the EU driver's hours rules, fit a tachograph and all the rest of it. So exemptions, if you're exempt or your operation is exempt, the type of work you're doing, is exempt from EU driver's hours rules, then it's exempt across the whole of the EU. The exemption applies to the whole of the EU. Remember, we're still following EU driver's hours rules. So the exemption would be across the whole of the EU. There is something also called national derogations. So each member state country derogates or says that this particular activity, we don't want to come in scope of EU driver's hours rules. And for whatever reason that might be, it's usually connected with, the way I look at it, it's usually connected with the supply of a utility type operation. So for example, door-to-door household refuse collection, journeys in connection with the maintenance, not the building of, but the maintenance of roads, the maintenance of a water supply, sewage, gas, electricity, that type of thing. So if your operation is concerned with those kind of things, then you can claim, or you may be able to claim the derogation, which is a national derogation from following and complying with EU driver's hours rules. Right, so let's marry the two up together now. This is where the confusion lies. Lots of people believe, it's tempting to believe that if you're not required to have an operator's license, then you won't be required to follow EU driver's hours rules, and that isn't the case. Let's look at a classic exemption from operator licensing, and that's a dual purpose vehicle, a vehicle that's built to carry goods and people. There's more to it than meets the eye. If you're going to claim that derogation, let's say, for example, because you're running a Ford Ranger or a Mitsubishi L200, something like that, there's more to it than meets the eye, because you've got to make sure that vehicle does conform to be to the description of a dual purpose vehicle. So generally speaking, rower seats behind the driver's seat, less than 2040 kilograms in weight. So you've got to look into it a little bit carefully. You can't just go, I've got a dual purpose vehicle, it's going to be exempt. So if that vehicle's pulling so on its own, that vehicle wouldn't come into it no matter what. But if that vehicle's pulling a trailer, making the combination now over 3,500 kilos, then that is still outside of the scope of operator licensing, because it's a dual purpose vehicle. Now, lots of people, that particular combination, that if it was being used for hire and reward, would require a tachograph and the adherence to EU driver's hours rules. But that's where a lot of people get the two sort of mixed up. Hire and reward does not feature in operator licensing. Hire and reward features in driver's hours rules. So just don't get the two mixed up. There is a subtle difference between the two. So operator licensing and driver's hours rules, two scopes that may seem similar. They're not similar, but they may seem similar. And hire and reward and own account only exist in terms of your operator licensing. They don't exist in terms of your driver's hours. That makes sense. I didn't say it the other way around a minute ago. So yeah, just to reiterate, in case I did, not a very good memory. There's not two of us to remember that. So hire and reward only exists in operator licensing. It doesn't exist in driver's hours rules. Okay, I just thought I'd do a quick one on that. Some people do get those two mixed up sometimes, and we start talking about EU driver's hours rules, and people start talking about hire and reward, and it doesn't really feature for that. It's to do with operators licensing, but certain derogations from EU driver's hours rules can sometimes mean that it kind of feels like the same thing, but it isn't. Anyway, that's me over and out for now, and see you on the next one.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, please share with your friends and colleagues too. Join us for free on Facebook with the Fleet Geeks community for transport and fleet managers. Fleet Geeks offers ongoing professional development, networking and mentoring too. So get in touch with me, Pete Rushmer, on any social media platform to find out more.